Welcome to the Hidden Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Omer Hargrove. And today we have a special guest, my very good friend, Danny Garza. Danny, today I really want us to be able to get to know about you and really your experience at Gravetop, as well as what you're doing right now, to kind of start off so people can get an understanding of how you even know me, how I know you. Can you kind of share what your experience was like, even when you first, like how you started going to Gravetop and why you've kept going up to this point?
Yeah, so for me, I kind of got started at Gravetop because of my wife. We were out of church I was out of church for a good while, and my wife had been wanting to go to church, and she'd been asking me. We kind of tried a couple of churches, and just really I didn't really like the vibe too much. It wasn't like, I wasn't feeling it. And she was on a like a mom group. She was on a mom group with Lauren.
Momming with Jesus.
Yeah, momming with Jesus. And I remember she was telling me specifically that, Lauren had put out a thing or made like a comment or a statement, and was like, people can wake up in the summer early and go to the beach, go and have fun, but some people can't get up early and go to church. And that really hit my wife kind of, deep.
Right.
And so she was like, hey, well, my friend goes, she's, her and her husband, started a church, you had the church for a while, but she wanted to check it out. And I was like, okay. And I really didn't want to go, but I was up for trying it. I'd been out of practice for...
Because you were raised Catholic,
I was raised Catholic, yes.
Okay.
I was raised Catholic.
Now you're getting invited to this evil Christian church.
No. I was always up for new experiences. And it was, for me, I always saw like Christians and Catholics real similar. Mm-hmm. I think, and it was kind of weird because as growing up as a Catholic, it kind of like almost gets instilled like this is the right way, and every other kind of thing is, if it's not exactly, this is the way type of thing. And for me, I just kind of didn't really like that vibe. I always saw it like, hey, people are following Jesus. This is what he wanted, and so that was always kind of a battle for me. I didn't really like, that part. And I don't know. I think somewhere in my mid-20s, I just kind of got lost along the way. Because I didn't really grow up in church. Growing up, I was in and out of church a lot in my younger years. And then as I got to a teenager, like high school, that's when my mom really started wanting us to really go to church. My grandma was going to this one specific church, and we had my grandma, a couple of my uncles, and then my mom wanted to try it out, and we went. I really liked it, but like I said, somewhere along,
it didn't like really resonate with you. It just felt kind of like a religious activity.
Well, I had another pastor there. I was real close with him. He was a really, nice dude. Mm-hmm. I really got along with him, and, he would always kind of try to check up on me. He always remembered me, and I really liked that. But, man, he was up there in age, and, unfortunately he got into a car accident. He didn't pass away from that, but it did affect his health being older. And eventually he was, he had passed away,
Right.
But so it was different having a different pastor. I think I went to that church longer because of the pastor. And
the personal connection.
Yeah, exactly. Like I had some other like connections, but they weren't as powerful. I wasn't like it wasn't somebody like they weren't connections that I could reach out to all the time. It was kind of see him on Sunday, say hi, and then
right, like just kind of cordial.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I always wanted something more. Like I felt like church was meant for more. It's meant to bring people that are like-minded, or looking for a better looking for people like-minded, and
Right.
I just didn't really get that at any church I went to. I wanted some stronger connections, and I think that was my biggest thing with church is like, well, I can worship God, or I can praise Jesus by myself, and I think that was kind of the beginning of me going down the wrong path, and
Like the idea, like I don't need a church to connect with God, but you're saying doing that kind of like stifled your spirituality.
yeah, exactly, and
Right.
then I just kind of started, I guess, what's the word? I guess I started kind of, thinking like worldly, I guess almost.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, what if, God isn't real? What if this and that? And just, it didn't do me any good.
I think unpacking that thought too for a second, because I hear that all the time. If the idea that it is actually more spiritual for me to not go to church, and I'm like it's a more authentic spiritual thing to do because I can connect with God anywhere. And the truth is, like, yeah, we can, but the gathering of fellow believers is just something so special, so powerful, where it grows our faith. And it's so ironic how we convince ourselves to do something, like we talk ourselves out of doing something spiritual, like going to church, by defining it as being something truly spiritual. And here you're describing how it ends up being this like self-depriving act when it comes to your spirituality. And I see that play out time and time again. And so now let's kind of like, fast forward, you're in this wedge place in your spirit to where you're starting to doubt God. You have this Catholic foundation. You're married now. Sierra just has to get on this Momming with Jesus podcast, and now she feels this call to action when Lauren says how she makes a statement about how when it comes to a vacation or going to somewhere fun, we could be up and out of the door by 7:30 with our kids. But when it comes to church, like, oh, it's just too hard to get to church at 11. And now y'all are feeling this fire in your heart. Well, she is, and now she's bringing it to you. What was that like? That initial conversation and going into your first visit at Gravetop?
Well, I think for my wife, she always kind of had a void in her heart with us not going to church. She was always kind of pushing us like, hey, I want to go, let's go check out this church. I've heard some stuff about it. And we'd go and check it out. And for me, if I think I was so far like away that I wasn't like, I'm not really feeling it.
Right.
Plus, also, like I said, I was looking for like a connection. And, so when she brought it up, let's go check out Gravetop, I was always open to the fact. I was like, hey, okay, like if you want to go and check it out, I'm not going to say, no, we're not going to go and check out a church. I would never do that. But so I was like, okay, like let's go check it out. And, I told myself I'm going to go with an open mind. I always did, especially when it came to church. I would always go with an open mind. Like, let's just check it out, see how it is.
You were willing. It's not like you like hated church.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just not finding the right fit.
Yeah, it was exactly. I couldn't find the right fit, and I don't know. I remember I really liked your message, and I think about halfway through, I was like, okay, like I'm liking it here,
Right.
and it was like halfway through the first church session that I went to over there, and I remember just walking in, honestly, and everybody just seemed so friendly. Like, hey, how you doing? Welcome.
And this is back in like 2021, right? I think it was early 2021.
Yes, 2021. Okay. And yeah, I remember just listening to the message, and I was like, okay. And the interesting part about Gravetop is the feedback time. And that was really, really different for me. I had never been to a church. I don't think I've even heard of a church that has, feedback minus, some Bible studies on the side where, we discussed stuff like that. But it was real interesting to me, you opened up the floor and people would share and open up their heart. And I was like, wow, I've never been somewhere where people are so transparent and, willing to share their heart, open themselves up to other people. It's funny because now I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to open up myself to, share my heart and share my experiences.
Right.
And before I was really closed off. I was not the type to normally do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up sharing that first day, and I was like, I really didn't want to come. My wife, asked me to come with her, and I'm not going to tell her no. So I went. And yeah, I just remember from that moment, I was like, I really see myself coming back here again. And I told you, I was like, we'll be back here next week. And yeah, we've been coming ever since for a little over 3 years now.
Wow, that's great. And one thing that you're talking about is like this idea of having that feedback, and how that was like a something you hadn't experienced at church before. And what I'm picking up like different notes from your church experiences, like that personal connection seems to be like one of those drivers, and even having that like time of feedback to where you could be able to connect and share was like a big part for you. Being able to at your old church, when you were classified Catholic, it was like that connection with that pastor. How important do you feel like connection is within church, and how do we like say a new person going to a church, whether it was at Gravetop or somewhere else, what kind of advice would you give them to be able to make that kind of connection if they're feeling that almost like that void the way that you're describing?
So when I was in Catholic church, I had gone on a couple of retreats, and
The Acts retreats?
Yeah, the Acts retreats, and I would be like so fired up, man. I would, on the right path and wanting to do the right thing.
Become
but
super
like,
Catholic.
Exactly, yeah, be super, well, just super in my faith, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you almost feel like a Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you feel like you're on fire, you know what I mean? You feel on fire,
Mm-hmm.
and your self-conscious is like kind of peaking, you're like, I don't want to, I remember like going from cursing every other sentence to like, okay, I'm not going to curse, and like being very aware of what I'm saying. Like if I knew like a curse word could possibly come out, I would change it. Like, okay, frickin' or something like that.
Replace it with something more,
yeah,
less violent.
yeah, exactly. And I would, I would be so on fire, but it would die out super fast because I didn't have anybody to talk to connect with. I was so much younger than everybody too. I was 18 on my first retreat, and then 20 on my second one, and everybody's just so much older.
Like
yeah, everybody's yeah, everybody's older, and it's kind of hard to connect with people, and granted, I feel like I'm an old soul. I can connect with people much older than me, very easy. But and then I lived on the opposite side of town, so I couldn't like really just go and get in my car and, hey, let's go, get together and kind of hang out. Exactly.
Guys.
Yeah. So
Go look
I
at
think
a museum.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I think community is very, very powerful. When you can have somebody to reach out to, and somebody that you can talk to, call, and they're gonna answer. They're gonna pray for you.
Right.
Like this community is so much so together, so strong, and you can really feel the Holy Spirit around in everybody. If you're going through something, we have a chat, and you can say, hey guys, please pray for me, I'm going through this. Or
And you're talking about like being at Gravetop now,
yes,
and like
yes.
the different like connection points that are available.
There's so many like different connections, and there's so many ways to connect here. We have the Bible study every once a month at the end of the month. Group chats, we're always trying to put on different events, and
Right.
Allows us to all come together and open up and share our hearts with
Right.
each other, and really just let loose sometimes too.
Let loose. So I hear from what I'm hearing is like there's like this almost like a give and take. Is one, finding a community that has like pathways for you to connect, because I've been to places before where it's like, so what do I do? You don't really know how to connect, and it almost seems like everybody else knows how except for you. And so it's like helps when you find a community where it's like easy pathways, and if you don't see them, maybe even asking, and like this other part of like really just being able to have this organic connection with people, as well as the intention of like showing up to the event or engaging in the group chat. And I think that for me, I'm like one that is like an introvert, depending on where I'm at. And when I go to like a function where I don't really know anybody, it's like I feel like it's kind of like a luck of the draw. To where I could be an introvert or an extrovert that day. I don't know, depending on how I feel. And I think that it can be difficult to engage. Like sometimes we almost have this like self depravity to where we want to connect, but we're also feeling that introvert mood to where we do not engage in things. Like we're not messaging on the group chat, or we're not reaching out at the event. We'll go to church and we just leave right away. And then we're upset, like, well, I don't really know anybody. And so I feel like what you're describing is this double-sided coin of finding that organic connection while at the same time making yourself available to connect with, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what, the importance of feedback does, because it allows people to share their hearts.
Right.
I think that was, once I saw that for the first time, it was way different, because I'm at the time too, I was a huge introvert. Anytime I'll be somewhere new, if I didn't know anybody, I kind of keep my head down, kind of scope out the scene, see how everybody's doing, see how everybody is, kind of see if there's any fakes, that's just kind of checking out everybody's character from a distance.
Yeah.
And once I kind of saw everybody being vulnerable and opening up, it allows yourself to feel like you can be vulnerable and open up yourself. Like, okay, like that person's opening up, nobody's judging them, nobody's saying,
kind of like able to gauge the community safety.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not just one person sharing, it's multiple people that are opening their hearts, and everybody's going through something, everybody has challenges, and some people might think that they're the only ones going through that, when really there's 4 or 5 other people in the same church that are going through that exact same scenario, or have been through that, and they can relate, and they can give their feedback or their advice. They can relate to people like that.
That's powerful. And how would you? So this started off with your wife inviting you, or more so saying, "Let's go to church together." And y'all tried out. Y'all end up going. Now it's been several years that y'all been going. How do you feel like it has affected your marriage and your family? Because at the time, I think y'all first came with just a little baby, and now y'all have 3 kids. Y'all have your baby girl and your twin boys. And how would you say that connection at church has affected y'all's marriage and your family?
So it's very funny, because I remember very early on in our relationship, my wife would kind of push me or tell me, like, I want you to be the leader in this family. I want you to, to take charge and, to lead us.
Yeah.
And for me, it was very different. I wasn't used to that, being by yourself for, the whole time, and then, jumping to a serious relationship, getting married, having a kid. Just kind of all happens all at once. And, I don't think anybody can really prepare for that type of change unless, they're guided by, a really strong father figure. And so, yeah, it was very different. I grew up in a household where, my mom and dad were separated. My dad was always around, but, I didn't really get to see, what it was like to have a, strong, stable marriage with a, strong leader of the family, and, a strong, male leader figure. And, so for me, it was difficult. It was a little challenging almost at first, because I wasn't used to that, and I wasn't really sure at the time what she meant by that. But the more I've been going to church, the more, I've been paying attention to the message, the more, you listen, the more you study it, you can see that it calls men to, be the leader, to guide your family down the path. And, I want to instill that in my kids. I want to instill that in my sons. I want them to be, see from me what it means to be a leader, how to lead a strong Christian family, down the right path.
I think that's a really articulated way of like how the journey looks, because I feel like when you don't necessarily, when you're not in this like community of Christian environments where you're getting these messages and content that's spiritual and edifying, that's derived from Scripture. You're not like having this faith growing, and you don't have this character building to where this first idea of like, I want you to lead is like, what, we're like, you running a race or what do you mean lead? Like, we're not, what do you mean, what do you want me to do? I'm like, going to work. That feels difficult to articulate when there's no point of reference. But when you do start studying Scripture, when you start going to church and you start having these different impacts in your life and these touch points to be able to reference of how to grow, it starts making more sense to where like leading may not be like running a race per se, but it's like instilling for your kids principles, integrity, character, these ideas within your family, these traditions, even the idea of just like we're a family who goes to church, like that is a principle in leading. And you're starting to like take the lead in these almost unspoken ways. Like you're leading in the culture of your family and the identity of your marriage and your children. And it starts really forming this stronger and stronger bond with your kids as they start recognizing your kids and your spouse as the leader of the household. And that being said, how do you, so what does it look like? Cause I know y'all personally. Okay. So you guys are, in my eyes, this strong couple. Y'all are in love. Y'all like each other. How, and I know that Sierra is also like, as much as she's, like had called you to be the leader of the family, she's also a very independent woman too. And it's not like she's, like, just waiting by like, Danny, can you just tell us what to do? Like, she's a very independent, strong woman, Latina. So how does that look like within your marriage, being both the leader and also like co-heads of the family, when it comes to like having this healthy dynamic?
I think it comes down to respecting each other. You know what I mean? Like you said, my wife is very independent. And it's funny because she was a lot stronger, independent. She was, it was kind of like two chiefs in the same house at one point, very early on in our marriage. And, because she was like, hey, if you're not going to lead us, then, I'm going to do this. And that was kind of where I was like, hey, no, I really do need to,
Hey, like, chill out.
yeah, like this is going to work, two chiefs. And it's funny because being in plumbing, I was in plumbing, that I was in plumbing for 10 years, and being a lead in plumbing, you kind of, you're responsible for guiding everybody, giving them the best direction and leading them. And then on my wife, on the other hand, she was like a store manager at Bill Miller's. So she's used to, telling everybody, hey, over here, guiding everybody, right, directing. So when we come together, it's like, hey, we're two bosses. I think the thing that attracted us is we both saw that we're hardworking. We're hardworking. We have good values. I knew she had good values. She knew my values, and it just started from there. But once we realized like, hey, we can't have two heads of the house. It's got to be one. And she was willing to say, hey, I want you to lead this family. I had to take a step back and say, okay, what do I need to do? Because I've never experienced what it was to see a leader of the family, see a leader of a together household. And you just kind of do a deep dive. And, I just wanted to make sure that not only am I providing the best life for my children, but, also making sure they're not spoiled at the same time, just making sure that they have the right values.
Yeah.
Something that was big for me was, hey, when we have dinner together, we're going to eat at the table, no phones. We're gonna talk about each other's day.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna turn off the TV and be together. You know, because I didn't have that growing up. When it was dinner time, sometimes we ate at the table, but a lot of times we just get our plate and go to our room, just eat and come back, throw the dishes in the sink, and that was it. So I was like, no, like family is gonna be it's gonna be God in, you know, at the center of our household, and then it's gonna be family, you know, stronger together. And I just had to kind of figure out, okay, what do I want to instill in my children? What do I want, you know, what do I want my wife to think of me when she looks at me? Do I want her to see like a leader, or do I want her to see, you know, somebody that she just kind of looks at and is like, oh, I can't depend on this guy. He's not, you know, he's not going to lead us down the right path. I got to do this myself. So I had to make sure that, you know, I'm taking us down the right path, that I'm mentally, physically, and, you know, just capable of, you know, being the leader.
You know, I like the word that you used, dependable. And I feel like that was like one of the strongest qualities that a person can have, is being a dependable person. And it's definitely not something developed overnight. It's something that almost takes like a sense of relentlessness, to almost to a fault, and being able to show up. I say this all the time, you know, when it comes to leadership, is that 80% of success is simply showing up. And what that is dependability. And when you're able to show up for your kids, when you're able to show up for your wife, for your spouse, it really brings so much value. And the opposite is completely true. Like when you look at big dysfunctions within families, within marriages, it's oftentimes where the one person, the point of contact here, is not showing up in the moments that matter. Like whether it's to the kid's first game, whether it's to the anniversary, it's this idea of really just not being there, not being dependable. And it could really just slowly degrade that sense of respect and the idea of this being a person that I can trust. It's really powerful. And so now that you've been growing your faith, you've been growing your marriage, you've been growing your family, and now you're taking these extra steps to where you and I have been talking, and you've been talking about how you have these different aspirations and these dreams. You launched your own podcast too. Kind of talk about what is it that you're driving at doing? Like, what is it that you're doing, and what's your drive in doing these extra things? Because like you said, you have your full-time job, y'all are both working, and you're doing these extra things. Kind of just explain your heart and why do these extra things? Why not just like do what normal people do?
So the thing with the podcast, the reason I started my podcast was because I kind of noticed like a shift going on in the world. I feel like I noticed a shift, and you know, I started noticing more and more people were kind of sticking up and, you know, fighting back for their faith. I think for the longest time, you know, this country was losing. You know, they're kind of pushing God to the side. We don't want God in school. We don't want we don't want God. You know,
right?
Like you know, it's a secret, but I started noticing people were like, you know, kind of pushing back, you know, saying, hey, no, like
we've had enough kind of thing.
Yeah, we've had enough. You know, this country was founded, you know, as a God-fearing country, and, you know, they're pushing back. And for me, it's like, I don't know, you know, I don't have, you know, millions of followers, you know, but I feel like I too need to speak up. I too need to, you know, I feel called to, you know, say something too.
Recognizing that your voice matters.
Yes, everybody has a voice. Everybody, you know, everybody has a voice. Everybody knows somebody. And if, you know, what's the saying? It takes a spark to start a fire. Mm-hmm. And so if I can reach, you know, right now I'm up to 50 something subscribers on my YouTube. And if I can reach 50 people and touch their hearts, and, you know, they can go out and say, hey man, you know, Jesus is the way, you know, he died for our sins, and he loves us, and he just wants us to, you know, he suffered through all that so we can have eternal life. And I just, for me, it was just about opening my heart and, expressing to people that, it is time to speak up for God,
Right.
take back this country, make it, bring it back to what it was founded to be. You know what I mean?
So your heart is really about the sense of integrity and faith, and kind of like making this push at it not being something that people have to hide, right? Is that right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and it's funny because I think for the longest time nobody was really opening up. Nobody was. I don't think. Well, at least what I see is like more people are coming out about their faith. More people are praying. More people are speaking up for Jesus, and I don't think I saw that a lot growing up. Granted, I didn't listen to a lot of the stuff I listen to now, but
Right.
I feel like I'm seeing it more, and for me it's like we do need to speak up for Jesus. Jesus wants us to spread his love, spread his word, and
Right.
and kind of I feel like we need to stick up for him. It's our job, and not that he wants us to like bully anybody or make anybody feel uncomfortable, but it's like he wants us to show his love.
Right.
And so that's what I kind of I try to preach on my podcast. I also try to preach being the best version of yourself. I think
Yeah.
that is a important aspect of life. If I feel like my podcast also goes back to leadership, like I said, and that's where the two intertwine, like leadership and being the best version of yourself, because your family's going to depend on you. So if you're not dependable, if you're not on if you're not at the best version of yourself, then something's lacking, and you're giving the enemy a chance to a better chance at defeating you.
Right. Just having this like constant pursuit of growth. And I like what you said, that idea that as you're trying to talk about faith, it's not that you're trying to bully anybody in being a Christian, but it's about like having these honest talks and conversations about not being shy or embarrassed about your faith. And I think that I like that idea, like not trying to bully anyone, because I feel like I've been bullied from both sides. Like I've been bullied by some Christians where like I'll say I'm a Christian, and it's almost like they don't believe me. They're just trying to like reconvert me to their version of Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, but I'm a Christian. You're like, yeah, but do you really follow Jesus? Because you should be doing this. And then the other side too, to where I could say that I'm a Christian. Like, how can you believe in a God that would do something like this? And it's like, hey, chill out, dude. Like, I just met you, and it's this like this sense of control. Like people have this idea of wanting to control how you feel or what you think or what you believe in, and it's weird. It's like really weird that we have this like nature to control things. And as you're sharing your heart about no, it's not about trying to control anyone. It's about being able to have an encouraging voice, especially for those who have that whisper in their heart. They have that whisper that wants to get louder, but they're afraid, or they're confused about where that direction is going. And I feel like, especially in, it's no secret that like our world is really freaking crazy right now, and as we're trying to navigate clarity, I think that being able to not look at yourself as being too small is important. I like how you even like you vocalize like I only got 50 subscribers, but hey, that's 50 people that maybe something I say could be encouraging to them. And so often we talk ourselves out of doing things because we think we won't be able to have a meaningful, like big enough impact. But to be willing to start with, any kind of group, like recognizing that like no amount of people is small necessarily. That it only takes one person to be able to make a difference in somebody else's life. And maybe I won't reach hundreds of thousands, but maybe I can encourage them to where they might reach so many people. And it's this idea of looking at what the heart of it, the heart that matters. I love that. When it comes to kind of like shifting gears here, when it comes to you as like a person of interest, what are some things that, like, when it comes to just like fun and games, what is it that you're into? Things that you like, things that you enjoy, hobbies, interests, things like that.
I think for me, one of my guilty pleasures is just kind of lounging around and watching a movie.
What kind of movies, though?
Oh, man, I like all kinds, really. Action. I could watch anything, really, man. Action, horror, comedies, rom-coms. Even I'll sit out.
Whoa,
I'll sit
rom-coms.
out. I'll sit down with my wife and watch a rom-com.
Okay, so you kind of like have a like.
Yeah,
you're just like enjoying the moment.
I love movies, man. I try to go to the movies as often as I can with my wife.
That's right. You went and what was the movie that you saw by yourself recently? So where your wife thought like, is he depressed or something? What's going on? Why is he going to see a movie by himself?
Which one was it?
Was it The Quiet Place, or was it it was
The Quiet Place. It was
Day One.
Yeah, Day One.
Nice. I still need to see that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was really good. But yeah, I really enjoyed going to the movies, and that was
Man of Cinema.
That was the second time I've gone to the movies by myself. Another time I went was like seeing, I think, the third movie of the Planet of the Apes trilogy. I think
the
it was
latest one.
No, it was the one right before. Yeah, it was
one that was actually good. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but yeah, that was
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Kingdom. And that was the first time I had went to the movies by myself, and I was like, hey, I go to the movies all the time. I'm gonna just go by myself, and I really enjoyed it. I love movies, but I used to play a lot more video games than I do now. The last game I played was Pokemon when Scarlet and Violet came out. Yeah,
on the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah,
okay.
I really enjoyed that. I can get pretty competitive as a gamer. I liked first-person shooters a lot. I think the game that really got me into gaming was Halo.
Halo. Hey,
Yeah.
they just announced some news. Have you heard?
No.
Yeah, they're going to be revamping Halo to be made on Unreal Engine 5. And it's like all realistic graphic.
Wow.
Like the graphic, they did like a demo.
Yeah.
And it's pristine looking graphics. It's a whole new way that's going to be done. So they're going to be revamping it.
Nice.
So there's speculation that they might be like remastering some of the originals again, but like in the Unreal. But we'll see.
Yeah.
But there's some movement in the waters.
Heck yeah. I think they definitely needed to do something about Halo, because I think the last one they didn't really do too well. I don't even think they had really a big release or anything for it. Not a big announcement.
People were really upset.
I'm sure. But I like playing Halo, and then another game that I was really into, and even to this day I still feel like playing it sometimes, is Skyrim.
Oh man, that means you're a total nerd. Yeah.
Dude, I loved it. I loved playing it when it first came out. Played it for almost 100 hours probably, and then and then when they came out with like the special edition with all the mods and stuff that you can put in, oh man, I played that for probably another 100 hours.
Yeah.
But I really love that game. That one was really fun. I feel like that one's timeless.
Nice.
Yeah.
Total nerd alert.
But I liked playing basketball when I was growing up. I had to stop because I tore my ACLs in high school, so that kind of started catching up with me. And then being in the plumbing field didn't do very good for my knees either, and I even threw up my back at one point. So I was like, yeah, probably not a good idea to do that anymore. But I've been dedicated to fitness and staying in shape, working out. I'm always up also for trying new things. I think that's very important.
Was it this year that you started doing cold plunges?
Yeah,
Okay,
it was this year. I got the
plunge buddies.
I got the plunge for Christmas, and then used it right after New Year's, and yeah, it's been I feel like for me, I enjoy putting myself in uncomfortable positions. I feel like that's one of the best ways to learn.
The sense of challenge.
Exactly. Like for me, that was a big challenge for me when I first started my podcast. Was I'm not a good speaker, or I never been a good speaker, and so even the way I said it right now, it kind of irks me now. And before it didn't, but But when I say stuff like, oh, I can't do that, or I'm not very
Yeah.
good at that, that was kind of like the key, I guess, the key turning the engine on for me at one point when I stepped back and realized, like, why am I putting myself down? Why am I doubting myself? Why am I, putting these limitations on myself?
Right.
We only got one chance at, life. And I feel like, you know, I have my health, and, I'm not, I don't have any disabilities or anything like that. So, if I'm putting my own limitations on myself, then I'm just, putting myself in this little box.
Yeah.
I don't believe in being in a little box anymore. I feel like if I want to, go out and do something, go out and try something, then I can, overcome the obstacle of uncomfortableness.
Right. And I like how you're saying that too, because for me, when I look back at like something, a talk that I did a couple years ago, I'm so embarrassed by it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I sounded like that. I'm like, and at the time I was like, hey, I think I'm doing great. But to realize that, like, no matter what, we all start somewhere and grow from that spot. And it's not like, it's not real to imagine any person to be perfect at anything their first time. And even when they think that they did it perfect, a couple years from now, you're going to look back and you're like, boy, did I suck. Like, and I can't believe people sat through that. And it's really just allowing yourself to endure and grow. And it's simply there's the only way to get better at something is by to continue trying and continue doing it. And I feel like even for me, like I remember the first attempt I did at doing podcasting, I did 3 episodes and then had a baby. I was like, I'm gonna stop. Like, this isn't practical for me in this season. And when I did those 3 episodes, I was like, I am so good at this. And when I relaunched the podcast and went back and listened to what I did, I was so embarrassed and thinking like, this is absolute trash. Like, I cannot believe I even thought this was good, that I released this to the world. That all dozen people that heard it. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. It's just recognizing that this is just a place for us to grow, and that the insecurity says you should do this less, but the reality is you should do it even more so that you can continue to practice, that you can continue to get better. And I feel like even for me as a speaker, I like now I don't just for years now, I have like multiple times I'm speaking throughout the week, whether it's a podcast, whether it's going to recovery centers, whether it's Sunday church, whether it's small group, like all these opportunities where I'm practicing this skill that I'm trying to consistently get better at. And the more that I practice, the better I get. It's just this idea that like, oh, I'm not very good at this, I should give up. It's just silly. It's that imposter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
trying to talk us out of something that we could potentially get really good at.
Yeah, which is a ridiculous way of thinking, because you're not good at anything until you actually, get in and takes practice, takes repetition, and that's how you become good at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
It's really like a video gamer's heart.
Yeah.
Like when I think about, like, I played a lot of video games as a kid, mainly because being at home alone a lot when I was real little, and video games was like what I was thrown at, but it was like gave me something to do that made me feel challenged as a little kid. Being able to play Super Mario and lose over and over and over, but have this like sense of tenacity rising up as a little kid of wanting to beat this thing and wanting to get better. And at the end of the day, like that's what I think that's why so many people enjoy things like video games, where it's like produces this sense of challenge, this dopamine release of being able to beat something. Of course, like we have to, we can't let that be the only source of our challenge, but it's this idea that like having healthy challenge in our life is just good. It's good for us, even if it's in a video game. But I love that. That's really powerful stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think of every day as it's really easy for me to relate life to like Skyrim for me when I played Skyrim, because you level up and then you can get a perk, and each time you level up, like I said, you get a perk, you get better. Storylines are a little more challenging, but you can overcome them because you've gotten better, you've gotten stronger.
Right.
And I feel like when you take every day like that as a opportunity to level up, to improve, to learn something new, then you just set yourself up for any other challenges that come your way. Whenever you get to that final boss, you've learned so much that you're not worried about it before. Whereas if you didn't try your best, try to learn, try to improve yourself, and you reach that final boss, and it's like, oh man, I'm level 1 going against this dude, it's game over.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. It's like whenever you have that free roam game, you go to the boss right away and you're like, I'm not ready for this, I need to go level up more. And sometimes it's like that in our different it's perfect relatable idea of how it is and the different things that we're trying in our real life. In kind of shifting gears as we kind of come to a close, I want to ask two big things. The first, we went to a wedding recently, you and I, okay? And there's different events that happen, different things that transpired. But one of those things that I think is an unforgettable moment was a moment in which, during the ceremony, I mean the literal I do's of this wedding, a giant, enormous tarantula appeared, in which a grown man ran away because of this tarantula. Can you kind of just talk about what happened?
Oh, like you explained, it was in the middle of the I do's, the gifting of each other's rings on each other's finger.
Very important part.
Yeah. And then out of nowhere, in our row, the man jumps up. A grown man that really you would look at him and not really think like oh, this guy's afraid of anything, and you kind of like,
he had a cowboy hat.
Yeah, he had a cowboy hat, and I mean, he looked like the real deal.
Yeah, you would have imagined he would have just pulled out his 6-shooter and popped it right there.
Yeah, and he jumped up, and everybody's kind of like and luckily we didn't throw off the wedding. Nobody in
just
the
whispers
front,
of fear, just spreading
whispers
through
of
our
fear.
row.
Yeah, and everybody's kind of that was around us was kind of looking around, and nobody knew what was going on except for the guy and anybody that was right there. And all of a sudden you see a tarantula, maybe like the size of that that big,
huge,
big spider, and then
bigger than you can imagine.
The biggest spider I've ever seen in my life, to be honest with you. These are the type of spiders you only see really in movies.
And nightmares.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're like, oh, dang, like, is that real? And
what are we going to do?
Yeah, what are we going to do? And it's funny. Everybody's like just looking like, oh, dang, like the spider's just kind of, doing its own thing now.
Just paralyzed with fear.
Everybody sees it. Everybody's made eye contact with it. And it's funny because, we all took like a step back, and then my wife in a panic goes, she hands you a cup and she goes, do something with this. The cup was smaller than the spider.
It was one of those like half cups, so that you don't waste more of the drink. So it's the half size.
Yeah. And she goes, do something with this. And it's funny because when we tell her it back, she's like, I don't remember, being that in much in a panic.
She's in a state of shock.
Yeah, she's in a state of shock. And you being the hero that you are, not all heroes wear capes.
I do what I can.
Go over there. I thought at first, like, oh man, the spider's gonna, run away, because as soon as you got closer, it kind of started, moving. Started moving. Yeah, it started preparing itself. And boom, you caught it. You trapped it, and it was like, okay, you trapped it, and then it's like, what's gonna happen from here on out? You just trapped it, but there's nothing you can slip under it. Luckily, you had your handkerchief,
my handy dandy bandana that I always carry with me.
Stuck it under and trapped the spider, and then set it free.
Right inside of the reception.
Right inside of the reception.
When we look back on that moment, for years to come, people are gonna think, "Where was I? Where was I when the spider was loose?"
Mm-hmm.
but one man stood up to the call. And I gotta say, if I missed that spider, it would have been a completely different story. I don't think people would have saw me as the hero, but as the person that screamed really loud in the middle of the wedding. But luckily, that didn't happen. People only saw the glory of catching this giant, humongous tarantula. I mean, something that you need a whole terrarium to contain. Yeah. You can't just be putting this thing in a little jar. It would have been inhumane. Mm-hmm. It needs a whole terrarium. And it was able to relocate it. Yeah. Now, I just had to have full witness testimony to share that. Because when I tell the story, people may not believe me. They may think that I'm just making it up. That I'm just creating a ruse. No. But these are all facts. Yeah. Now, the next thing I have to ask, and in the spirit of Halloween season, it's spooky vibes. People are already, getting in the mood. Mm-hmm. And I asked Lauren this too. What are your thoughts about ghosts?
Ghosts.
You believe in ghosts?
That's a good question.
It's a spooky question.
I've heard stories from other people.
Ghost stories.
Ghost stories. I don't think I've ever had an experience myself, but I have heard stories. I believe that there are spirits that maybe
are... See, that's what Lauren says, that she believes in spirits but not ghosts.
Yeah, I'm not really sure,
But what's the difference? What's the difference between a ghost and a spirit? A ghost is just like more intentionally spooky.
I think a spirit is it's difficult.
A ghost has
it's difficult to explain. Yeah, I think a ghost. When people think of a ghost, they think of like somebody that died and just kind of stays around haunting people, or ooga booga stuff. And with a spirit, I feel like spirits could be good and bad. Maybe a relative wants that's in heaven wants to come down and
use a
just kind of
to talk to you.
Well, I was thinking more like just kind of watch, but like I think there's some bad spirits out there, and that's more of the cases you hear where it's like there's haunting, my house is haunted, or that area is haunted.
Do you think that haunting is from a ghost or from like a demon?
See, that's where I think there's like the bad spirits, I think the bad spirits would be demons. Yeah. And it's kind of funny to me.
So are the spirits demons and angels, or are they people?
I think they're demons. I think they're demons. Okay. Yeah.
So ghosts are people and spirits are angelic or demonic?
I think I don't know. I guess you could put it like that. Like, there's some ghosts that are, good spirits and, just kind of, hanging out and chilling.
Just chilling, having some tea.
You might not even notice them. Well, I mean, I think some people...
in the latest gossip.
Yeah.
Talking about what we do in the shower.
I think they might give us a little more privacy than that, hopefully. But, if not...
But if you were a ghost, like, would you care? I mean, it's
I think at that point...
you lose a sense of morals,
I think that's where,
death.
I think that's where, the whole Adam and Eve stuff comes in. Because before you bite the apple, nothing, seems like sin. You don't have that sense of...
see us as, like, being naked. It's not like they're getting aroused.
Exactly, yeah. I think they lose... Yeah, I think, you get that... that holiness that is lost from the very beginning, and it's kind of funny because I think, people will believe more in ghosts and, spirits but they won't believe in the Holy Spirit.
Bringing it back. Yeah. I think, if you think about it, it's kind of like the idea of like a ghost is like someone with personality, it's like wants to bring out some chains rattling and, knock down some books and stuff. But a spirit, maybe that's like something that's, it doesn't even have like a face. Ghosts may have like a little spooky apparition face or like a figure, but a spirit is like an orb, and it's like, like just kind of like letting it's there, but not really doing anything. But a ghost is like, I'm gonna haunt you because I'm pissed off that I'm dead. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there could be both. Because you do hear the ghost stories and stuff like that, and maybe they do have different personalities. Maybe a ghost is there to haunt and scare, whereas a spirit can lead you
Because
and
a lot of people think,
whisper.
like that ghosts are like people who are lost, that in the sense of purgatory.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, listeners, this is not like a biblical conversation. We're just talking trash
Mm-hmm.
here. Okay, no need to get upset or start, leaving a mad comment saying there's no such thing as ghosts. We're just talking, we're just dialogue. Nothing wrong with that.
No.
And so it's like that. I don't believe in purgatory, but the idea of like a ghost, like even when the disciples saw Jesus walking on the water, they thought he was a ghost. So it's not like the idea of ghosts is a modern concept. It's something that has been believed for centuries.
Yeah.
So it's this weird idea of like what even when Saul in Scripture went to go find a medium to get advice from Samuel, who had died, said that they had called up his ghost, and his ghost came up and said, "Who woke me from my slumber?" So, what if? Here's a spooky thought. What if, like, when we die, we go into what's called like Hades, where it's this place in which our souls are held until Judgment Day, right? Because no one is in heaven or hell. Now you want to get biblical, we'll get biblical. No one's in heaven or hell right now because we're awaiting Judgment Day. But once you die, you're outside of time. And so it's as if like the minute you die, you wake up at Judgment Day. But in the meantime, we're in the spiritual holding place of Hades. And what if when you use a medium, the reason why the Bible is so strong against it, like in Deuteronomy, it says it's this, this evil act. And you think like, what's the big deal? We're just talking to some ghosts. It's just a Ouija board. Why are you so mad? But what if the reason that it's so evil is because if you use a medium to call up a ghost, what if you are permanently waking up that soul who would normally have just woken up on Judgment Day, but now instead of just, in a sense, like being in this spiritual sleep, they now have to wait what feels like eternity, like hundreds and thousands of years, which would feel like hell. Imagine if they're forced to wait until Judgment Day because they're awoken from the medium. That'd be kind of messed up, right?
Yeah.
Then it's going into some like
Yeah.
really ooga booga stuff to where it's like that's a true evil. Going out and calling up our old relatives and ruining their afterlife slumber.
Yeah.
That could be messed up.
Oh yeah. That's a very interesting way. I don't think I've ever heard it like that, but it's very interesting to
get
think
outside
about
the
it
box.
Yeah.
I try to think about things, and I sometimes I'm not satisfied. And I just continue to think about it. In this like borderline
I think
autistic way.
I think like the way you're describing it too could be like they're in this holy place or wherever they're at, and when you drag them back into earth, or you might accidentally leave them there permanently for for someone to come and find them, type of thing. Maybe they get lost. Maybe that is a purgatory or something like that. I don't know, but
well, I guess we will know one day.
Yeah.
But Danny, I really loved having you on this show. How, if people want to connect with you, how could they find you? Whether it's your social medias, your podcast, where could they find you and look you up?
Well, I'm on Instagram at I believe it's Daniel Garza Podcast on Instagram. On Facebook,
Clean tag.
on Facebook, it's just Daniel Garza, and on YouTube, it's Daniel Garza, or you could add the at Daniel Garza Podcast, and you'll be able to find me.
Nice.
Or you could just search up DGP, and all my episodes are labeled DGP, and so it's really easy to find any of my episodes like that. But yeah, that's how you can connect with me.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate you having on, being able to share your story at Gravetop, being able to share your aspirations as a husband, as a father, as a leader with your new podcast, and being able to share your heart, and even indulging me in conversations about ghosts and spiders and stuff. But I really appreciate you having on. And those of y'all watching, thank you for being a part of the Hidden Potential podcast today. I hope that this conversation was meaningful for you and that it was edifying to us being able to connect and grow the best we can. Until next time, have a great life. Well, there you have it. I hope that this episode was meaningful and edifying for your leadership and your growth within your ministry and organization. Could you do me a favor? Could you leave a rating and review for this podcast? It'd really help me out and help others be able to see this show in their feed. You can also visit homerhargrove.com to be able to learn more, connect, or become one of our supporters. Until next time, have a great life.